create the greenest battery on the planet, three things that need to come together. There needs to be more than just believing and investing in Europe. There is not enough sustainable nickel.
Dennis, thank you so much for joining me for this video, and it's great to have you here. Just first of all, Northvolt's strategy from the beginning, I think, has been to build the world's greenest battery. How does the supply chain fit into that ambition?
Well, to build and to create the greenest battery on the planet, right? It's part of three things that need to come together. First of all, powering our gigafactories with renewable energy. Secondly, making sure that over time the recycling setup works so that 50% of our materials are in the battery are coming from a circular setup. And last but not least, it comes from a very localized and sustainable supply chain. So if you like, when it comes to supply chain vision, right? If the Northvolt's vision is to create and to deliver the greenest battery, right? For me and my team, if we engage with suppliers and partners, we say we want to have the greenest supply chain in the battery industry itself.
And how worried are you at the moment with this low price environment? We've seen some more sustainable, if you like, operations either halt production or temporarily scale back their plans. How worried are you that this could limit the access to more sustainable minerals?
No, we are worried about this. Definitely the long-term contracts that we have with some of the raw material suppliers are stable and for sure gives us security of supply over time. At the same time, indeed, when the prices are so low, we do see and we are worried that certain operations either go bust or need to pause. And as you probably know, it takes years and years and years and a lot of investment to get those operations back up and running again. So it is definitely a worry. At the same time, we also know that markets come and go. So I'm sure that within the years to come, the demand and the pricing will level out again, and we can actually deal as an industry over time also better with the volatility that exists in the market.
And what's Northvolt doing to support these operations at the moment? Are you signing off takes or committing to buy supply?
Yeah, so a couple of things we do in order to support our sustainable and as green as possible partners, if you like. First of all, it's indeed long-term contracts that gives a certain level of security. Secondly, we have built up in the 7 years of our existence with so much focus on sustainability. We've built up expertise in order for our partners to know what it takes in order to become a sustainable partner. And last but not least, we really do everything we can to influence the political landscape, to influence the regulatory landscape in order for our partners to not only have a sustainable and good solid business from where they operate, but also to help them setting up shop in Europe and localizing their investments towards where our gigafactories are.
And in terms of a localized supply chain in Europe for raw materials, you've called for, I think, Europe to help to help these projects, perhaps set up a critical raw materials fund. Is that what Europe needs to do to provide the capital for these projects?
No, we absolutely believe in that, and that's where part of our lobbying is targeted towards. But there is more to be done. Clearly, right? It's not only the funds itself, but it's also the notion and the realization that no matter how much we bring back, let's say, refinery capabilities and capacity in Europe, or we really unlock the raw material assets that are in Europe, it will still not be enough, right? So there needs to be more than just believing and investing in Europe. And that means, of course, working on legislation, working on free trade agreements with those countries that actually have most of the raw material assets out there that need to come to Europe in order to be refined, which is, of course, a very carbon-intensive step in the whole value chain in order to get to our facilities.
So you're building a lithium refinery in Portugal with Galp. Could you give us an update on the progress of that, and where are you looking for feedstock to feed that plant? Is Africa one of those regions that you're looking at?
So it's still in design and development stage. We have a good relationship with Galp. It's definitely in line with our strategy in order to support local access to, in this case, lithium hydroxide. When it comes to the feedstock, other feedstock from other places in the world is possible. We're looking into that, but of course the primary focus is and should be to take the lithium that is present in Europe itself. So it's still in a good place, and we see that as one of the It's funny maybe it's a little bit of a side story, but it's people think about Northvolt as one startup or a scale up, which actually, as I said today, I rather use less and less because we need to get it to a stable mindset in that sense. But of course we're scaling and we're growing fast. But it's not one place, right? There is a cathode active material business, there's a systems business, there's a cell business, there is a Hydrovolt recycling business together with Hydronorsk, there is Aurora. So there are many fantastic businesses being set up that altogether fits our fully vertically integrated thinking, which makes Northvolt so unique.
And are you worried at all? Because we've seen even the lithium hydroxide refineries in Australia have taken longer than people thought, been more difficult. Yeah. Are you worried about the difficulty of setting up a refinery?
I'm not that long in the industry, but typically not personally of the worrying kind, right? So and I do like this business, and I'm super passionate about it because of the risks that need to be taken. So I rather use, yes, there are risks. Yes, things go wrong. Yes, we come to the office every single day, right? 80% of the things that land on your desk are unknown to you and have never been solved before. So it's an extraordinary challenge that we have in front of us that requires extraordinary people just to get on with it. And in terms of lithium hydroxide refineries and how to really set up a completely green and sustainable value chain, yes, it's difficult.
But we can expect a final investment decision on that, I guess, this year?
We're still, it depends on, of course, the design phase and how we get our plans in place. But clearly, so far we just keep going at it.
Got it. And moving on to other minerals, obviously nickel is big for Northvolt. You're producing nickel-rich chemistries, NMC chemistries. We saw after Russia's invasion of Ukraine that I think Northvolt scaled back their plans to source nickel from Russia, which I guess would have been a more localized supply. What's the replacement strategy been, and is there enough sort of sustainable nickel out there for you?
So on nickel, there is there is enough for now. Of course, with the growth in coming towards us, as I mentioned today as well, there is not enough sustainable nickel, if that's the word to use. So clearly we put a lot of effort in ourselves to the partners that we select to make them greener and more sustainable over time. And so in terms of the war in Ukraine, right, we have been able to divert and secure long-term contracts with nickel, and with nickel, of course, over time, right, the percentage in the percentage of nickel in our NMC chemistry, right, is only increasing. So it is definitely a very critical element of our product.
But I think Northvolt has said they wouldn't consider supply from Indonesia because of the various environmental concerns about it. Is that right?
So on Indonesia, right? I've been there actually. It was one of the most funky experiences in my life. If you talk about scale, go to EMIP. And it's amazing. So we are assessing it, and it's a little bit the same. And maybe you will get onto Cobalt as well, right? We are a company that want to do things right, and we want to influence society. We want to influence community. We want to influence that work circumstances are proper, that ethical standards are being applied, that we really get to total traceability of the full supply chain down to the mines, right? And if indeed a massive part of whatever nickel is available comes from Indonesia, right? Then you have to lean forward and not sit back and say, "Oh no, that's bad. We don't play in that game."
So you're suggesting that you could help those companies improve or support them?
Exactly.
Interesting. And when you went there, what did you see that was challenging or of concern?
So what is of concern is traceability, right? Because there are a lot of local mines that are actually being brought together towards the refineries. And that's the point in time when you lose full traceability down to the mine. So we're going one step further to really select the mines and work towards a value chain and a flow of goods that actually does provide that full traceability. So I think that would be the biggest challenge. Then in terms of a lot of cleanup in terms of wastewater treatment, logistics. Apparently, it was my first visit, but a lot of improvement have been made. And the Indonesian government, of course, they also realize that the light is shining on them, and there are definitely, in order to attract companies like us and the whole, let's say, battery industry itself, plus the move towards a net zero position for the world in 2050. Right, it's inevitable that it will come clean and green over time as well.
Interesting. So they're receptive to change, yep, right? And you're willing to support that.
Yeah,
that's interesting. So just moving on to Cobalt, Northvolt recently joined the Fair Cobalt Alliance.
Yeah.
But I think you've also said you wouldn't necessarily source from small-scale miners, so-called artisanal miners.
Yeah.
In the DRC. Can you give us a sense of what your aim is in the DRC, and are you looking to source supply from there?
So we are looking to source from the DRC, but first and foremost, we need to have, again, right, where we source from, the partners that we're dealing with, they need to live up to our standards in the best possible way. So that means that, so that's number one. Number two is by being part of the alliance and by actually leveraging the influence, again, locally, towards the community, towards standards of work, etc. We really believe that over time, also in the DRC, circumstances will be better for those who work there, for those who trade there, for those who actually providing us the goods that we need. And again, why the DRC? Well known probably to the audience as well, but of course, it's by far the largest asset in terms of cobalt that exists in the world. So it's leaning forward, right? Being part of the game, rather than judging and saying that's wrong. We don't deal with that country or specific setup or organization.
But surely to engage at some point, you have to agree to buy this supply, right, from artisanal producers.
No, we might end up there, but it's for now. We have said that we're going in. We said we sign up for the alliance. We said that we are also for ourselves to have a cost competitive setup, right? It's inevitable that we need to source. We need to get full traceability. Whatever the next level in the value chain is going to be is part of our assessment. And I'm not today here to say a full blown yes, it's going to happen. We are in the process of doing so, and we will source over time from the DRC.
So it could be industrial miner first, and then in the future potentially.
Who knows? Yeah.
Got it. And just going back to lithium again.
Yeah.
Are you looking at sort of new lithium techniques such as direct lithium extraction? Technologies that promise to improve the sustainability of extraction.
We are. This is going to be a very generic answer. We are constantly looking for innovation and new technologies. And we really have a super talented team and experts in order to not only when it comes from mining, but process industries, which steps in the process actually are, first of all, causing what type of carbon footprint, what is the cost breakdown of every process step, and therefore any new technology that comes across, we take it on and we access it. At the same time, we also need, and this is important, to understand the cycles of innovation in the battery industry. It takes probably 3 to 4 years to design a new cell and go through all the validation steps, right, from our automotive customers before we go into mass production. Yeah. So yes, we are very focused, and we are a tech company in the end, right? So we look at new technologies, but in the context of how much and how fast it can go is really set and dependent on the longer cycles that we need to follow for the automotive industry. Of course, when we expand towards industrial batteries or energy storage systems, there might be opportunities for shorter cycles and therefore faster innovation in technology, including extraction of lithium.
Interesting. And you're planning to build a gigafactory in Quebec.
Yeah.
Are you also looking at Canadian resources? There's obviously lithium mines being developed right nearby.
That's a simple answer, yes.
And so you're hopeful that the North American supply chain can be self-sufficient?
Same story, right? We have to have a local supply chain. We really believe that that by doing so, we will get to our 10 kilogram per kilowatt hour targets in terms of sustainability, because as I said, right, 50% comes from powering our factories, 50% from the supply chain. The more local you are, the more you actually, greener you are, right?
Interesting. And that's, say, a 90% reduction in CO2 battery that you're targeting. Perhaps the biggest material in terms of emissions, I think, is graphite and the anode. Yeah. What's Northvolt's strategy for that? Because recently, Chinese company Putalai said they're going to build a plant in Sweden. Mm-hmm. Is that the answer to get Chinese companies with the technology and expertise to come to areas like Sweden where they can use renewable energy? Yeah.
No, Putalai is a great example. It took us maybe 2-3 years to convince them. We are the first customer, one of the first customers that will take off graphite from their setup in Sweden. And it reduces their CO2 footprint, because it's going to be powered by renewable energy again, right, with 90%, right? So the biggest, dirtiest contributor to our own CO2 footprint in the supply chain reduces it by 90%. So that's a big bang. And I know, or we know, and it only works when, of course, Putalai gets more European customers. Yeah. So we're very happy that it is happening, and that they therefore are able to put up the billions that it takes in order to do it. To your point, is that the answer to get Chinese and Asian suppliers and partners involved? Yes, they have the expertise, and right. Not only have I many good friends in Asia and in China and their colleagues in Northvolt, right? It's almost like stupid not to leverage knowledge, capabilities that has been built over 20 years, and bring that to our own closeness and our own business in the Western world.
So when you talk about localizing supply chains or even de-risking, you don't mean cutting out Chinese companies then totally, right, from the supply chain?
Absolutely not. I think it's sometimes I don't get it. Why the us versus them kind of thing, right? They're onto this for a long time. They're good at what they do. And yes, of course, we want to de-risk and we want to have control over our own destiny. But clearly that can and should be done in partnership with Chinese and Korean and Japanese partners. So that's how I see it.
And are you worried that if a Chinese company like Putalai or others come to Europe, the costs will go up, you won't get the same low price that you would sourcing from China?
No, so that's a good point. In our analysis and in our cost models that we apply, of course, it's very important that we get cost competitiveness as well. And again, with scale, that is definitely possible. Yes, land is more expensive. Energy, you can argue. Labor, more expensive. Inflation goes up. Taxes, right? So there is a lot of elements that say, can Europe ever compete on a cost basis with China? but at the same time, the cost competitive is better if you utilize, right, the Asian capabilities rather than trying to invent it yourself.
Got it. And you've talked about vertical integration. This is Northvolt's motto, right? But why not then invest in mines directly? Do you have any plans to do that?
No, it's. I think you have to cut it somewhere, and getting into mining is really a completely different field of expertise. Already, the vertical integration between, let's say, a discrete part of our value chain, like cell manufacturing, and then a process specific industry like cathode active material and recycling, right? To make that integration work is already a serious challenge. We will get it right, and we believe in it. But to also go further down into mining is just a step too far. We are constantly getting proposals, and we are being asked, and there are big offtake guarantees that then need to be put on the table. For now, the number of gigafactories that we're building, the number of customers that are knocking on our door, the operational execution that we have in front of us for the next, 5-10 years, it's only the beginning, right? Also, so let's get this right first before considering taking something on that is not close to the core enough.
Got it. And in terms of sustainability premium, is that something your customers are willing to pay for the traceability, the more sustainable supply chain, or are the customers saying just go for the cheapest option?
No, so it's a good one, and it's how green should you be, right? And it's an interesting one, and always very much debated also in our own strategic sessions with the board, with the shareholders, with our owners. Right. In the end of the day, we have contracts with automotive customers, long-term contracts that actually do cover for the ESG premium that the value chain is currently the consequence of providing the greenest battery in the market. And so therefore the race is still on, because of course automotive industry and cost competitiveness and the profitability is also a very important metric. But in the end of the day, I really believe in sustainable businesses actually being measured on the social value they create, the environmental value that being created, and of course the economic value that is being created. And in the end of the day, if those three parameters are holistically being seen together, I do believe that over time, also consumers are prepared to pay slightly extra for a green battery. And there are actually subsidy schemes, and in France I've learned, right, where that you only get a subsidy for your EV car if you can prove that you have European batteries in your car, right? So that is already an interesting dynamic in order to stimulate the industry to get to the scale that is required to be cost competitive with let's say the Asian ecosystem of battery manufacturing.
Interesting. But how should Europe define sustainability? Should it focus on carbon footprint or these other metrics that you're talking about?
No, I would say carbon footprint is, you need to focus, right? That's measurable. Life cycle analysis is actually kind of a science and an art in itself sometimes. So we need to get to standardization as well, right? The different companies are measuring and doing these life cycle analysis in different ways. So CO2 footprint and per kilowatt hour is definitely number one. But as I think I alluded to, sustainability is broader, right? It's about the waste, it's about ethical aspects, it's about working environment, it's about traceability, and all of that is for us still the way to define what it means to deal with sustainable partners.
And are you worried the Chinese companies will just accelerate their move towards becoming more sustainable and ship those batteries to Europe, or are you confident about your advantage in this area?
No, we're confident in our advance in this area, and actually we are proud to help Chinese companies and support Chinese companies to become green, right? And that includes the big battery manufacturers that are out there in China. We talk to them, we support them. They want to do business in Europe, right? So what does it mean to set up shop in Europe? it means that you need to fulfill certain requirements, not only towards the customers, but also from a legislation perspective, to get permits, to really live up to what it means doing business in Europe. So we're not closing it off. I got the question on stage as well. Yeah. We have a higher purpose, and of course we need to set up a business. We need to make money, but I mean the cake is so big, and it has to happen. And by fueling the industry, more investments will come, more political drive and forces will happen, more laws will be cut and simplified in order to go faster. And again, for that we are super engaged with all the Japanese and the Korean and the Chinese knowledge and capabilities that exist out there.